and speaking, and I thought I either need to be a lawyer or a pastor. I went to my pastor and I said, here's what I'm thinking, and I feel like I understand how the Lord's made me, but I'm thinking about these two ways. And he said, if you're called to be a pastor, wonderful. He said, but we could sure use some Christian lawyers. And the same way, we could sure use some Christian educators. And so you're in there to bring light to a place that's dark, and we need to encourage the kids the same way. If they're a great artist, take Christ into that community, and we need to go and really redeem the entire society for Christ. And the wonderful thing, though, is, again, and I'm going to go through the different areas here really quickly, and then we'll have questions afterwards. The law is just totally protective of you. Number one, there's a whole bunch of laws that I'll get to second, that anywhere you work, even if you're at work for not the government but a private employer, there's all kinds of laws to protect you. But you have the extra thing of the fact that your employer is the government. So because your employer is the government, that means the Constitution protects you. Okay? Now, if I went to work at some construction company and I said, "You're violating my constitutional rights," they'd go, "Constitution doesn't apply here, bud. I'm a private entity. You don't have any free speech here. If I don't like what you say, I'll fire you." And they're right. I'd have no recourse. But you work for the government, and the Constitution, therefore, protects you, unlike other people who have jobs. So it really is a neat thing. Your free speech is protected. Your free exercise of religion is protected. And basically, the way it works is you have a right to speak, to even share your faith at work. There's only two things that you can't do. And again, these are things that no Christian would really do anyway. One is you have to respect other people's no. You can't just badger people and bother them so they can't get their job done and continually come back again and try to shove Christ down their throat. I mean, if they say no, you need to respect a no. Secondly, you can't use your position if you are over other people to try to force them to do something like, okay, I want to invite you to church, and if you don't come, you're not going to get any promotion. Okay? Again, these are not things that any Christian I know, would try to do anyway, but that's it. Outside of that, you have the freedom to share the Lord, to talk to people about the Lord, to do everything that this ministry would encourage you to do. Now, secondly, that's the Constitution. There's also a whole bunch of federal laws and state laws that protect everybody who's an employee in the workplace. Title VII is the federal law. Oh, and by the way, let me mention, I should have done this up front. I run a ministry that represents people free of charge. We go into the courts and the legislature and we battle for biblical principles, and we do it, free. And so if you don't remember anything I say today, that's okay, as long as you know there's a place for you to go and get help for free. Because people don't typically think of lawyers and free at the same time. Okay? And one of the things that's in your packet that we worked with Gail and Myrna to put together is a little pamphlet or brochure. It's called The Power of One. And all it does is lays out the legal rights you have. Now, we did this for a couple of reasons. Number one, so you could have it, but really, I'd say this has two main purposes in my mind. Number one, it gives you something to take to an administrator or somebody if they're giving you a hard time and you want to let them know, hey, look, this is the law, and encourage them not to violate the law. But number two, it has our number on the back of that, where if you ever needed to call and just ask a question or get help, you can get that as well. So again, after all this is over, just know there's a place to call if you have a situation arise. Again, the first thing that protects you is the Constitution. The second thing that protects you is these federal laws. Is Title VII, which is a federal law. And we also have state laws that say about the same thing. They're the Texas labor laws. And what they say is, as a Christian, you really have two protections under the law under these statutes. Number one, your employer cannot discriminate against you in the workplace based upon religion. And you might think, well, yeah, that's obvious. They can't say, well, you're not hired because you're a Protestant and not a Catholic, or you're, a Christian and not some other religion. No, it goes further than that. It means you can't be discriminated against. You get the same privileges as anyone else. So, for instance, let's say that people meet for any reason in their spare time. The teachers, let's say they get together and they have a meeting on, who knows, raising money for 9/11 after that happened. Well, then you say, well, I'm going to have a meeting with people to have a Bible study or a prayer time. And they say, oh no, you can't meet and have any prayer time. Well, they just discriminated against you, okay? Because other people could meet for other purposes. You can't be discriminated against because you're meeting for a Christian purpose or for a religious purpose. Talking in the lounge. People talk in the lounge about all kinds of things, right? I mean, if somebody's talking about Britney Spears shaving her head, then you have a right to talk about Jesus Christ. And they can't say, some administrator or somebody can't come in and say, don't you ever talk about Christ in the teacher's lounge. They have just violated the law if they do that. What about sharing your faith? Because people get touchy about that. There are cases on sharing your faith. Even in the Ninth Circuit, which is California, pretty different place. Very clear. All the cases everywhere say you have a right to share your faith at the workplace. That's part of religious freedom. What about inviting people to church? Yeah, you can invite people to church. What if you're a supervisor? Can you still invite somebody underneath you to church? Absolutely, you can invite them to church. You can't say, now if you don't come, there are going to be consequences, obviously. But again, I don't know anybody that would do that. What about having a Bible or wearing Christian jewelry? Again, yes, all of that is fine. It's okay to do. What about emails? And I'll give you an example of one case we had. We had a company that said we don't allow personal emails, but they allowed personal emails. Everybody sent personal emails to everybody else. But when the Christians sent a personal email inviting everybody to a Bible study instead of to the beer bash or whatever else, all of a sudden they came down on them. Well, again, that's discrimination. You can't stop one and not the other. We're going to do the questions in writing, but yeah. What about treating groups the same? Yeah, they have to treat groups the same. Do they allow announcements by one group? Then they have to allow announcements by the other group. Okay? So if there's a place, depending upon your school, every school is different, but if you have a place where they allow announcements for educators to educators, they can't stop your announcement because it's Christian. Or if they allow, there was mentioned earlier to the mailboxes. If the school allows, anything to go in those mailboxes, they can't stop yours because yours is Christian or religious. They have to treat the same. Now, there's also an additional protection that exists really nowhere else in the law in employment for religious freedom, and that is not only can employers not discriminate, but they actually even have to go the extra step, and they have to affirmatively accommodate people's religion. And what that means is, let me give you some examples. For instance, some people might say, I can't work on a Saturday because I'm a Seventh-day Adventist and that's my Sabbath. Or I'm an Orthodox Jew and I can't work on Saturday. If the employer can shift schedules around, they're actually required by law to accommodate that person's belief. So you see how there's a heavy burden on employers and on the government to work around somebody's religion even. So there's really and you might say, well, I don't know how that would occur in my deal. Well, I see it all the time. They pull in some New Age seminar where they want to, everybody to learn how to, be better employees by tapping into the Force and, meditating and something. And there are some Christians that say, no, I'm not participating in that. And, there's some places where they'll say, well, you either participate or you're not a team player, so you're going to get fired. Well, they can't do that. Again, a Christian a lot of times will find themselves in a situation that the non-Christians won't even realize they're doing something that would compromise their faith. Okay, they're not trying to in that situation, but it's the responsibility both under the law and as a Christian for that Christian to go to that person and say, look, I understand maybe this is fine for you, but my faith doesn't allow me to do this, and therefore I need an alternative. Okay, they need to communicate that. Again, under the law, they have to accommodate if at all possible. Now,